D. Mace, Finn, Ginendonic, 1025 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. I hope you are all having a wonderful Wednesday. Gentlemen, I know that silly underdog picks isn't for a couple of hours, 5:20 p.m., by the way. But Chris Sanders, just be prepared.
He needs to stop.
We got a preview this morning from Chris Sanders. He is protesting the results of week 1.
I don't care what in the hell he protests. It's getting shut down.
It's a pretty weak argument.
Immediately, okay? Immediately. Not immediately, immediately. Okay? It's going to get shut down. We ain't having that on this show.
So
he's been doing the contest for several years. He knows the rules.
He's not a
contest.
rookie to this.
So let me get this straight. So Chris picked Texas to defeat his alma mater, Ohio State. At the time of the competition, Texas was a 1.5 point underdog. And I know that the line shifted a couple of times.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the line shifts or not.
Okay.
Once you make the pick, that's the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
End of discussion. There's no argument.
Okay, so you
Chris
draw that line with Chris Sanders.
I've drawn the line.
Yeah.
I don't
the line
know.
is
There's
drawn.
no controversy.
Yeah. Did you see the thumb? Did you not see the thumb?
I don't know what Chris is thinking.
Exactly.
Chris has been doing this competition for like 5 years.
Exactly. Are you not entertained, Chris? Are you not entertained? You saw the thumb in a text chat, and it went down.
Like when you make a bet in Vegas,
yeah,
and you make a bet 3 weeks before a game, if the line changes or some quarterback gets hurt, it doesn't matter. You've got you're locked in with your pick. I don't understand what Chris. I think he likes to be entertaining. He likes to push the envelope.
Yeah. He wants to see how far he can get.
He's trying to test the commissioners.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing.
It's not going to work.
Chris, don't let him.
I think I'm just putting this out there. A 1-game suspension for even trying. Trying.
I like that. A 1-game suspension. People, if y'all like that, let us know.
615-737-1025.
1025.
Yes. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Week 2 of Silly Underdog Picks in the 5 o'clock hour. One of you will have an opportunity to participate to represent the people, just to entice you. The giveaway, if you represent the people and win, is a pair of tickets to see Dwight Yoakam at Ascend Amphitheater next week, Tuesday, September 9th. So if you want those tickets, you want to get in on Silly Underdog Picks, be listening in the 5 o'clock hour. Chris is going to raise hell. I just want to get it out there. He's already started doing it. The commissioner has made his ruling. That's not going to stop Chris Sanders if he shows up on time. I did text him 7 hours early to say, Chris, Silly Underdog Picks today. Pick up your phone. So none of this, I didn't know it was supposed to be today business that we got last week. The Tennessee Titans were on the practice field today as they prepare for week 1 against the Denver Broncos. I have not seen the injury report yet, so I assume it's not out. If I missed that, I'm sure one of you will text me, also at 615-737-1025, and we will talk more about that matchup. But we're going to start today's show with one of our critical Titans questions. We've been doing this exercise since last week. At some point, we're going to have to double up because we missed Monday, of course, because of Labor Day. But I want to start today's show with question number 7, because I think this is going to be a talking point throughout the season, especially if the Tennessee Titans struggle, as many expect them to do in Cam Ward's rookie season. It's a simple yes or no question, and we are going to dig into it more than just answering yes or no. But 615-737-1025, Titans question, critical question number 7. Will Jeffery Simmons be on the team by season's end? Yes or no? And we are going to discuss this in many different ways, but we're just going to start with that question, general question. Will Jeffery Simmons be on the team by season's end? 615-737-1025. Derek, when I ask that question, what does your gut tell you?
Ooh, man. because I'm optimistic about the team, probably more optimistic than a lot of other people, I would lean on yes, he will be with the team. But if this thing turns, for the worse very quickly, I can see the Titans, trying to get more picks in this upcoming draft depending on how Jeffery Simmons is playing. Now, we saw what just happened with Michael Parsons and his trade, how they facilitated that and what Dallas got in return, 2 1s and a player and a third third round pick. Jeffery Simmons, it wouldn't be close to that. And that doesn't, that's not an indictment on Jeffery Simmons when I say that. He's just not they're two different players. Michael Parsons is a high valued player at the defensive end position. When you're in the interior, unless you're Aaron Donald, one of those upper echelon, Hall of Fame type guys, you don't get valued as much as the outside guy. Why? Because your sack numbers are not there. Yeah, you're great against the run, but teams want to see sacks. So if it did come to that and the Titans were to potentially trade him, I think the only way they get a first round pick is if they trade him to the bottom half of the league, meaning the teams that are going to pick in the first round at the bottom half. And we assume Kansas City, Baltimore, the Rams, teams like that, Green Bay, even though they don't need another defensive player. I'm just saying teams like that. So you may get a late first round pick because to them, getting Jeffery Simmons, with still some tread on the tires is better than, trying to figure out who I'm going to get at the end of the first round.
I've been doing a lot of thinking about this. I think the Micah Parsons trade definitely sets the market. If you were speculating before what Jeffery Simmons is worth in a trade, then I think the Micah Parsons deal at least sets a bar. Jeffery Simmons is not the same position as Micah Parsons, and he's not as decorated, especially based on his last couple of years not being his best years. He's also older than Micah Parsons. But I keep going back to two things. A, what the Titans themselves have said is that they want to pick in the top 100 a certain amount of times over the next couple of years. And B, it's hard for me to foresee that Jeffery Simmons is going to be on the next great Titans team. If you put those two things together, in my mind, you should be shopping Jeffery Simmons around. And D-Mace, I think that's the point you made about who would want to trade for Jeffery Simmons. It's probably somebody who's going to draft in the bottom 10 in the first round. So a first-round pick, if you're throwing out first-round pick, if it's pick 20 through 32, that's different than pick 1 to 10 or 11 through 20, right? So
yes.
you have to factor that in. So all first-round picks are not the same value. But if you could get 2 or 3 top 100 picks for Jeffery Simmons, maybe get the team to throw in a player who's a useful player on top of that, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at it hard. I just don't see why you wouldn't really explore that. Now, after a couple of weeks, like he's here now, they're not going to trade him before Sunday's game.
No.
So this is more of a trade deadline question at this point. 4 or 5 teams. We saw what happened last year. You got Buffalo, you've got Kansas City, you've got Baltimore. All 3 of those teams are going to be in the mix and probably add 1 or 2 others that have really good years. I think you could create really good competition in a market for a player like Jeffery Simmons, especially if he's having a good year. It doesn't mean you have to do it, but I'm exploring it big time, I think.
Say what you will about Jeffery Simmons, and I think there are a lot of you who are disappointed in Jeffery Simmons's production at his position relative to his contract and his standing in the NFL. Remember, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN.com, he does this exercise every summer. He polls league executives and coaches and other football people, and he uses those votes to make a top 10 list of the players at every major position. And Jeffery Simmons was number 4 on the defensive tackles list for 2025 behind Dexter Lawrence of the New York Giants, Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs, and Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles. He maintained that spot from last year. He was also the 4th ranked defensive tackle in the rankings last year. So I know that there are some Titans fans who want more from Jeffery Simmons, but it also can't be denied that Jeffery Simmons is considered in the league as one of the best players at his position. That counts for something.
Yeah, it does. He's a high-end player at his position. But when you are throwing in trade value, what is his trade value? Yeah, you look at the Parsons deal, but I'm not getting 2 first-round picks, and I'm not getting a 3rd, and I'm not getting a player. Not because we don't believe Jeffery can be an asset to our team. It's because that position isn't valued as much as the guys on the outside. And plus, as good as Jeffery has been, his sack numbers are not what GMs would consider, trading 2 first for. Yeah, they can. It depends for Jeff. And people, we're not saying this because we've heard something, there's been, there's some type of, article out. No, this is just a part of our 10 questions for the year. And this one may come a little sooner than a lot of the others. But a lot of this depends on what teams are jockeying for that number 1 or 2 spot, and what are they willing to give up for him. Like, if I'm gonna tell you who it's going to be. It's going to be Baltimore. It is going to be Baltimore that looks at Jeff and says, all right, we are 1 player away from being the defense we really want to be. And they just may as well be, depending on what happens up front. And they would be willing to give up their 1st round pick for a guy like Jeffery and sign Jeffery to an extension. To me, that's who it's going to be, either them or Buffalo. One of the 2 teams to try if the Titans are not in a space where, the organization thinks, okay, we can make a run this year. If they're not in that space, if it starts off 0-3 or somewhere around there, then yeah, look for a move like that to be made, because their pipeline, to them, the pipeline is great. From Tennessee to Baltimore, that pipeline has been very beneficial.
Being better than Kansas City for 5 years now. Like, they've been right there with Kansas City, but Kansas City always is the team that ends up in there. Jeffery Simmons could make the difference for them. And it may go against philosophically what Baltimore does, which is they're really smart at trading down, getting extra picks, drafting smart. But they might be at a point where they say, you know what? We got to go for it. It's time. Now, the question is what? Will Jeffery Simmons be a Titan at the end of this season?
Correct.
I think the likelihood of a trade this year is pretty low, right? It's maybe 40% that he could be traded. If the Titans get off to a lousy start and it really takes them down the road of, you know what, this year is a wash, let's look at next year. I think you could find the right deal. If a team dives in there and says, this is our year. We need Jeffery Simmons, and we need him right now. But you can also revisit this in the offseason. To me, that's where it's really going to get interesting with Jeffery Simmons and where he sits at what stage of his career and where the Titans sit. So I think the real question is going to be, what is the mindset of the team? Is the mindset now in this week of all weeks, when you're 0-0 and you got hope on the rise, you've had this camp and everybody's excited about, I like the group, we've got good chemistry. Will Mike Borgonzi look beyond that as a young first-time general manager and say, we need to look big picture here? I can't get caught up in whether we're 4-3 or 5-4 around the time of the trade deadline, and we might be able to squeeze out a wild card. What's the best way to build a championship team needs to be his mindset.
You brought up the quote from Chad Brinker, I believe it was, talking about the number of top 100 picks he wants to accumulate to help bring this team back to contention. And the Titans reportedly had the opportunity to get some of those top 100 picks when they turned down overtures from the New York Giants, among other teams, for the number 1 overall pick. Mm-hmm. To me, the only way the Titans could possibly get some of those top 100 picks, now that they have passed on the trade proposals for the number 1 overall pick, which was months ago, is by trading Jeffery Simmons.
He's the only other guy that has value.
Correct. So that is the question as well. And I understand what you're saying, Willie, and I agree with it in the sense that we want the Titans to win games, okay? Because talking about the Titans losing every week last season really, really sucked. There's only so much lipstick you could put on that pig, and we ran out of lipstick after like week 6. So we were having to make do with what we had to talk about the Tennessee Titans last season. I know all of you would like to see the Tennessee Titans win games. My personal priority is not winning games this season. I don't want the Titans to go out and throw every game, but if they lose, I'm not going to be bent out of shape about it, because I do think it is in the best interest of the team to get back into the upper part of the draft. And you know what? Come hockey season, I might say the same thing about the Nashville Predators, but we'll get to there, later.
The thing about a hockey season is you've got a little more time before you need to make that pivot. Right. Whereas in football, the trade deadline is fairly early in the season.
Yes.
And you only play 17 games, right? You have to make these tough decisions quicker.
My point, sorry, Derek. Mm-hmm. To wrap up, my point is that if the Titans, let's say the Titans surprise people out of the gate, and let's say they're 4-3 through 7 games. I'm just throwing a number out there. I don't think that's going to happen, but let's just say it for the sake of this discussion. Let's say they're 4-3, and the trade deadline is coming up, and Baltimore or Buffalo or Kansas City, one of those contending teams, wants Jeffery Simmons. It's different for me in this chair than in Mike Borgonzi's chair. I'm saying, screw the season. I'll take that deal.
Well,
that's going to be the toughest part about
it. It's enticing. But if you're a team sitting at 4-3, it's hard to then abandon the progress that you're making. And say, well, unless you feel that the guys behind Jeff or even on the side of Jeff, meaning T'Vondre Sweat, can, get the job done, then okay, I can see. But if you're 4-3, you can't abandon what you set out for this team. And if you don't trade him during the trade deadline, you're not trading him at all, period. You're not. I think you're going to end up just signing him to an extension and allow him to remain a Titan and retire one. Because if you just think, no one's the highest his stock is going to be, I believe, is that trade deadline. That's the highest.
Even higher than the offseason?
Yes, even higher. Why? Because the season's in progress. Teams that play games, they know exactly where they are as a team and what they may not have, or the injuries.
If my math is correct, the trade deadline is following week 9, and the Titans have a bye week in week 10.
Exactly. So that is going to be the time where his stock is the highest. And if they don't make a move by then, they're not making a move at all. They're going to keep Jeff, and they're going to sign him to an extension. And he's going to remain a Titan.
615-737-1025. Question number 7 of our 10 critical Titans questions. Will Jeffery Simmons be on the team by season's end? How would you approach Jeffery Simmons this season in terms of keeping him on the team or selling him to the highest bidder? 615-737-1025. We bring this up because the Micah Parsons trade allows us to sort of compare what a potential Jeffery Simmons trade could look like. So we will attempt to answer that question. How did the Micah Parsons trade affect Jeffery Simmons' value on the trade market? We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Tune in for the NFL Game of the Week on ESPN 1025 The Game as the Dallas Cowboys take on the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow night at 7:20. NFL Game of the Week is presented by Circus Sportsbook Kentucky and Macero and 12 South. Later today on ESPN 94.9 The Fan, the Nashville Sounds take on the Norfolk Tides. First pitch is at 5:35. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you. One commenter on our YouTube chat with the name Firebrinker is taking umbrage with our discussion. The season hasn't even started and you're already trading players. Your thoughts?
Willie, explain to our listeners.
I'm just going to tell you before they play a game what I think their outlook should be long term. And if his thing is Firebrinker, then that counteracts kind of what he's doing. Like, we're already trying to play. That's their job, is I think to realistically assess the roster. I could be completely wrong. There's always this is what makes the NFL great. There are always crazy things that happen, and you're like, how in the world did that happen?
Just last week, Micah Parsons being traded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
One of those things.
And I was even taking it bigger. Like, there's always a team that you don't see coming. Like, let's take the 1999 Rams. They were awful for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Then their quarterback got hurt, named Trent Green, and they put in a guy nobody's ever heard of, Kurt Warner. He's the MVP of the league. They win the Super Bowl. I mean, so this league is full of surprises. But if you're being realistic and you're trying to build a championship team, you cannot worry about how you do this year. And that's why I'm going to try to be as consistent as I can within reason, right? You have to look like you're a competent team. We all agree with that. But I'm not going to be, hey, we got to get the coach out of here. We just, we're going to reference this article about how you kill quarterbacks, how you fail quarterbacks. And it is so written, the history of how many screw ups there have been. And the Titans have to get out of their own way and not be the next team that screws up a plan to build around a quarterback. And part of that plan is to get him good players. You can't scour the waiver wire or overpay older free agents and draft poorly and win with Cam Ward. I don't care how good Cam Ward is. You have to be looking at what's the value, how do you accumulate assets to build a winner? So this year, whatever happens is gravy, and that's why I think they should trade Jeffery Simmons. That being said, I don't think they have the guts to do it. I think they will, unless they're 0-8 or something like that at the trade deadline. And if they're 0-8, I wonder how Jeffery Simmons will be playing and what his value will be. But I think there's too many things that point to no. I think the likelihood is they will not trade Jeffery Simmons during the season. Do you guys agree, or are you guys voting the other way?
I will vote no as well.
Okay.
And I think Derek said no too.
Yeah, I said he won't be traded.
Steven on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says it won't be a tough decision at all. It's the Titan. If the Titans are out of the playoff hunt and someone's willing to trade their first-round pick for Simmons, you must make the trade. Another texter says, unless this team wins 9 or more, he's gone for picks. Now, here would be my counter argument to Willie's point about finding the best players to surround Cam Ward to make him successful. Jeffery Simmons at the moment is the best player the Tennessee Titans have. And there aren't many Jeffery Simmonses walking around available to teams in the NFL. So that would be the devil's advocate / counter argument to your point. Jeffery Simmons does hold the most trade value of any player on the team, but he's also the team's best player. And Derek has talked a lot about how important it is for young quarterbacks to have good defenses. And Jeffery Simmons helps you,
yes,
theoretically, be a good defense.
That's fair. That's fair. But also, you know what helps? Having top 100 picks.
Yes.
And you had a great study the other day about how poorly the Titans have done with their swings in the top 100. They need more swings. They were what, 6 for 16?
5 for 16.
5 for 16.
Between 2020 and 2024, the Tennessee Titans made 16 top 100 picks. 5 of the 16, including Tajay Spears, who's on IR, so he wasn't on the initial 53-man roster, but we're including Tajay Spears. 5 of 16 between 2020 and 2024 were on the team.
They need guys like Jeffery Simmons on this team. You look at this team. This is a young team, a young, inexperienced team. That's why you look at the roster and you think the depth is not there. This is a team. They got some veterans in some key spots, but it's not the veterans that they've drafted. So when you look at Jeff, you look at entering into next season, what is going to be their prime objective? I think is signing Peter Skoronski, especially if he continues to trend the way he has been. I think their number one thing is to try to get Peter Skoronski under contract. I don't think Tajay Spears is going to be here. He's just so injury prone. And some of these other guys, I even said McQuarrie, I don't think he's going to be here next year. That leaves a guy like Jeffery Simmons. You already know him. You know who he is. He still has a lot of tread on the tire, I believe. Would you rather re-sign him, or would you rather try to go out and get a veteran free agent to try to replace him, and you're going to have to pay him anyway? My thing is the Titans, they don't have enough veteran guys, I don't think. They got a bunch of young guys that are inexperienced. That's why this roster isn't as good. They're going to need guys like Jeffery Simmons, especially if this team is trending toward development. If no one wows them in the trade at the trade deadline, Jeffery Simmons could be a part of those blocks that they're setting for the next iteration of the Titans as they move into the new stadium.
And I'm trying to figure out exactly what Jeffery Simmons' trade value would be. And as Willie said and Derek said, Micah Parsons and Jeffery Simmons, they're not, the same player. They don't necessarily, they don't play the same position. But Micah Parsons netted the Dallas Cowboys 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, a useful defensive tackle, right? Micah Parsons is 2 years younger than Jeffery Simmons. Parsons is 26. Jeffery Simmons just turned 28 about a month and a half ago. Parsons is more accomplished in his career from an individual standpoint than Jeffery Simmons. I even went back to the Khalil Mack trade because that was the trade that we were talking about when the rumors started swirling around Micah Parsons. Well, look what the Chicago Bears had to give up to the Oakland Raiders to get Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack was more accomplished at a younger age than Jeffery Simmons. Khalil Mack, I was reminded of this today, was a first-team All-Pro at 2 positions in 2015, defensive end and outside linebacker, which I believe is the first time and I think the only time that's ever happened in NFL history. So taken all together, I do think that Jeffery Simmons could be worth 1 first-round pick. I remember Paul Kuharsky had a report in April. He talked to some league executives, and those executives said that, or at least one of the executives said that Jeffery Simmons could be worth a 2nd or a 3rd round pick. I'm not trading Jeffery Simmons for a 2nd or a 3rd round pick.
No.
It needs to be a 1st round pick.
I want a first and then another top 100 pick in there. And how you do that is you hope that you have more than one team calling you, right?
Yeah.
It's always fluid. On a certain day in a certain month, that might be what you think the market is, but the market is whatever somebody's willing to shop. If you put him out and shop him around, then I think you get the real market value. And if you're underwhelmed, then keep a really good player like Jeffery Simmons. There's nothing wrong with that. It may not be ideal for what I think is the best, but you're not giving him away. You're not looking to dump him. You're looking to maximize what he's worth because I think he is a game changer. He could put a team over the top for a Super Bowl. That, to me, if I'm the team trading for Jeffery Simmons, just like the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, they were like, you know what? Micah Parsons could make us the best team in football. That's worth what we're giving up for him because A, he's that good, but B, there's also a confidence in the Packers' ability to evaluate talent and draft smart because that's what they've done to build this team.
A couple of reactions on our text line. Ben says, Simmons doesn't make the Titans defense good by itself. If you stack the offense with talent, you can at least be comfortable with keeping Cam long-term. If the offense and defense are both mediocre, you can't make any decisions easily with anyone. The 3 to 5 year plan shouldn't include a prime Simmons because he won't be the same anymore. Lenny says it would be a horrible idea to trade and let your best player go in Jeffery Simmons. Remember when A.J. Brown left? Remember when Derrick Henry left? Keep the good players. Another texter says, you guys are way off. Big Jeff isn't close to Mac or Parsons. Titans will not get a first for him.
I didn't say he was close to Mac or Parsons. What I said is, listen, if you are going to get a first round pick, it's going to be a bottom, a bottom, what is
near
it? 20,
end,
yeah,
near
20,
the end
20
of the
to 30.
Round.
Yeah, near the bottom half
likely.
of the first round. That's where you're more than likely, and I'm talking about 22 on down. That's where you're more than likely to get a first round. Why? Because teams in that position feel they are one guy away, and they're willing to risk that draft pick on that one guy because they know that draft pick more than likely will not be an impact player. This more than likely that guy will not impact their season, in a way that Jeffery Simmons could right now. So they would be more willing to give up 27, 28, or 29, to get Jeffery Simmons.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your responses to this question. But coming up next, we did not touch on this yesterday. The Titans' unofficial depth chart came out, and there was one name on there that caught a lot of people's attention.
Did Bill Belichick put the depth chart out there? This was not a Bill Belichick depth chart.
It was not a Bill Belichick depth chart. There
were
actually names on the depth chart.
Were there names on there?
There were names on the depth chart.
You mean people actually submit depth charts?
Yes.
No way.
Yes, they do.
Oh, my goodness.
Can you believe that?
That's a shocker.
Isn't that nice?
TCU 48, North Carolina 14. 615-737-1025. The Commodores travel to Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech this Saturday. Pregame is at 5. Kickoff is at 6:30. Vanderbilt football is brought to you by Gary Force Acura and Smoky Mountain Tops.
Of course, Jim Harbaugh did that.
Derek Mason here, and if you've injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or matter of fact, nothing at all. Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. They understand how much your bike gear is worth to you, so they will get it all repaired or better yet replaced. Law Tigers is a resource the motorcycle community turns to when it needs. So whether it's to support you in an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW Tigers or visit lawtigers.com. Law Tigers is powered by Freeman and Fusen, and you can find them in Nashville located at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
That's consistency. He's shown up in practices. He's shown up in games. He's strong. He's fast. He's made plays when the balls come his way. He's earned a right to be the first guy to walk out there. But that doesn't mean that he's the only guy that's going to be out there. You know, we're going to have receivers up on game day. They're all going to play. They're all going to have roles. We're counting on all those guys to produce and perform for us. So he's earned a nice little bump as a starter on paper, but they're all going to play.
Did you see from him progressively get better, I guess, through camp and the preseason?
Just the performance. I think the consistency of performance just showed up every day. You know, made plays every day. He's gotten better every time he stepped out there. He's a strong runner. He's a powerful route runner. He's made plays on the ball, and that's what we're looking for. He's earned himself earned himself the right to be called a starter.
That was Brian Callahan on Alec Iamaner, who is listed as a starter on the Titans' unofficial depth chart. Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Alec Iamaner as the starters. Immediately behind each of them, Van Jefferson, Bryce Oliver, and Chim DK. And Weston Hermitage on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com. This is a great question for our resident wide receiver. Wes says, serious question. What's the difference between NWI and Iamaner? Why let one go and draft the same guy? NWI was cheap, and super dependable. The mindset of we'll just replace him with somebody better has not worked well for this franchise. And before Derek responds, I like Nick Westbrook-Akine as a player. The guy had 9 touchdowns last season. What do you think the odds are that he's ever going to have 9 touchdowns in a season again, let alone in his career? He's also 28 years old. He is what he is at this point. Alec Iamaner, the Titans didn't draft him to be their Tyreek Hill, their Justin Jefferson, their Jamar Chase. I mean, they certainly would hope that, but 4th-round receivers. How often do 4th-round receivers, Derek Mason, turn out to be superstars?
You know what? I don't know. I really don't. I know 2 that turned out to be.
Oh, yeah?
Myself and Terrell Owens.
There you go.
That's it. But I'm sure there have been many, more than what we may tend to believe.
So why don't you start by answering Wes's question about Iamaner versus Nick Westbrook-Akine, and then I would love your thoughts on Iamaner, his performance in the preseason to earn the distinction as a starter ahead of week 1.
No, I think you said it. We know what Nick Westbrook-Akine was. Well, we know who he is as a player. His ceiling he has reached, and it's a productive ceiling. It's a okay ceiling. It's a ceiling that you trust him. He's not going. He more than likely he's not going to make the big play, but he's going to at least catch the football at times when you need it. But he's not going to be your number 1 guy or your number 2 guy. So that going in. You've seen all of this. You've developed him basically, so you know what he is. Iamaner to them has a higher ceiling. The potential, they see starter potential. They saw 3rd wide receiver potential at best with Nick Westbrook-Akine. At best, they see him possibly as a number 1 one day, but at worst right now, he's their number 2 guy. And, however they chose that, meaning them not going with Van Jefferson and instead going with the younger guy, I don't know why they chose to do that, but I can assume it's because, again, just like Nick Westbrook-Akine, they know what Van Jefferson is. They know where his ceiling is. He's really a 3, but you can play him at a 2, but it may not be for that long. With Iamaner, they believe the ceiling is, he can be a number 1, but right now he's played well enough or good enough. He's our number 2 right now.
I would ask the question differently, because you're always trying to draft players. You need players. They've drafted horribly, so they've got to draft. So put Iamaner and DK in a separate category to me. I think the question might be, was it better to keep Nick Westbrook-Akine and not sign Jefferson? Like, Jefferson, I think, was cheaper than Nick Westbrook-Akine, but not by much, right? You wouldn't break the bank keeping either one. So I'm not sure why they thought Jefferson was the better fit than just keeping Westbrook-Ikhine, who did really, really well for them last year. I mean, they're different types, right?
Again, they know, they really, I mean, they knew who Nick Westbrook-Ikhine was. They knew who he is. And they felt, again, at best, he's a 3. We really want to make him a 4. He can't play the 2. If we got to play him at the 2, something's wrong. With Van Jefferson, just like with Iomanner, they believe their ceiling is a little bit higher than what Nick's was. And they chose to go that route. Now it's, but I do believe, and this is no slight to Van, I do believe in their mind that Iomanner is more physical. They want a more physical presence out there at that wide receiver, at that X position. And they may believe he just may well be a little bit more physical than Van Jefferson is.
Nick Westbrook-Ikhine at one point last season had an 11-game stretch where he caught 9 touchdown passes. That was his Linsanity moment.
Yeah.
The name that popped into my head, Willie, you'll appreciate this. Derek, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about. 20 years ago, there was an NHL player by the name of Jonathan Chichu. Jonathan Chichu scored 56 goals for the San Jose Sharks one year. Out of nowhere. Never heard from again, basically. It happens in sports. Ikhine had a great, productive season. 9 touchdowns is nothing to dismiss. Listen to the leaders in touchdowns last season, receiving touchdowns in the NFL. Jamar Chase, Terry McLaurin, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Mike Evans, Mark Andrews, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
I think it's one of the more fluky seasons I've ever seen from a touchdown standpoint.
Tied with Rashad Bateman, Drake London, and Jordan Addison.
So I think everybody in the league would agree that was fluky. But Nick Westbrook-Ikhine had been a Titan for 4 years. Like, you knew what you were getting.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The price was okay. I'm looking at this. Van Jefferson's a 1-year deal, $1.6 million. Mm-hmm. Westbrook-Ikhine signed a 2-year deal, which is really
a
1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
They can get out of it after this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the money was close to the same. It's 2 years, 5.9. But so, yeah, it's a little more expensive to keep Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, as it probably should have been. He had a good year.
But Nick was never going to, in their mind, Nick could never push to be nothing more, and at best, a 3.
So you think Van Jefferson is not only cheaper, but better?
I think Van is better. I think Van is a better all-around receiver. Like, he can run intermediate routes. He can run the deep routes.
Okay.
He can run the short route. You can put him in different spaces. I think he's more fluent when you come into the wide receiver position. I'm not sure, based upon the way they use Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, he wasn't that type of receiver.
Derek, the other day you talked about motion with the receivers. Could you see Iomanner being that motion receiver for the Titans?
No, they can have him at X, so more than likely he's going to be on the ball a lot. They want him as the X receiver. I think the X receiver has changed a little bit. That's your more physical, straight line guy. And I'm sure it has changed from when I was playing. But they want Calvin Ridley to be that move guy, because Calvin's not as good when he's stationary than when he's moving, because a lot of teams, if you read the scouting report, you press him, you throw him off you can frustrate him a little bit. You can throw him off his block a little bit. Not to say you can completely shut him down, but if you're talking about kryptonite, then that is his kryptonite. You get up in his face and you press him all game and make it difficult for him. Well, the Titans understand that. They back him off the ball and they put him in motion. That's where he's most effective, because he is a hell of a route runner. And that's what they're hoping for Iomanner, that his route running ability and his stature gives them the ability to get off the ball a little bit cleaner. Like, when I played X, I was there because I can get off the ball quicker than everybody else, because you're stationary. You got to be able to get off the ball. Well, Iomanner is not, I don't think it's so much the speed, but the physicality that he brings at that X position.
And we're talking about what we want to see from the Titans this season, this is really a developmental season for the Tennessee Titans. And we'll get more into Cam Ward coming up in the next segment. And I've mentioned this before. When it comes to rebuilding teams in any sport, I am on team play the kids. No disrespect to Van Jefferson, but I don't need to see Van Jefferson. I know what Van Jefferson is as a wide receiver. I want to see Alec Iamander have an opportunity to play meaningful snaps with Cam Ward because, let's face it, as Willie and Derek just discussed, Van Jefferson is not going to be in this team's plans past this season. Alec Iamander should be in this team's plans past this season and hopefully for many seasons if the draft pick works out. So I don't need to see Van Jefferson. I know he's going to be out there. I'm not going to say, get him off the field. But I would prefer to see Alec Iamander because he needs to develop alongside Cam Ward. So when it comes to this, I support the decision. I think it's good for Iamander on paper to be the starter because you hope that Iamander and Ward develop a connection starting this season that lasts for several years. Van Jefferson, maybe Cam Ward develops a connection with him. They didn't do so well in the preseason. But, it is what it is with Van Jefferson. So I like that Iamander earned this spot because I think it's more important for his development and for the team long term for him to be in that spot.
It's why one of our 10 Titans questions was who has more combined receiving yards? The youngsters, the cluster of the young guys, DK, Iamander, Gunnar Helm, and Bryce Oliver, versus the placeholders, the veterans, Tyler Lockett, Van Jefferson, and Chico Conco. This is a good move for me because I took the youngsters.
You did.
You guys took the veterans, but at least I'm off to a good start with Iamander getting the nod as the starter.
A lot of it is going to hinge on this first game, I'm telling y'all. Because like Brian Callahan said, listen, all these guys, at least the top 4 guys are going to play. We saw how the Titans rotated their receivers, which I hate, by the way. They rotated their receivers all the time. It's like you can't stay. I don't care if you run a run play, stay out there. I don't care if you run and go, stay out there. But because they're going to rotate these guys so many times, I think they're all, at least the X, Iamander and Jefferson, they're going to start off getting sort of the same amount. This game is going to be critical for one reason. This is the best defense in the National Football League. Secondary is really good. They want to see how Iamander handles this. And it's going to be a point in the game where it's going to be 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, or 4th and 2. And they're going to choose to go to Iamander. That's when they're going to find out whether they got the player they thought they got or he needs some more development. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. And if he makes it, off we go, and he will start getting more of the reps unless he sort of runs out of steam as the rookies hit the rookie wall. But if not, if he catches one of these critical passes, the show is on now.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your thoughts on Alec Iamander being listed as a starter on the Titans' first unofficial depth chart. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, a great story in The Athletic written by Zach Kiefer called The Bust Files, how NFL teams break young quarterbacks. Hey, the Tennessee Titans have a young quarterback. Have the Titans set up Cam Ward for success? Based on this article, we will discuss that and more coming up next. 615-737-1025. Michigan takes on Oklahoma this Saturday at 6:30 p.m. in our college football game of the week on Sports Talk 830, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants and Circa Sportsbook Kentucky. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 102.5 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. The Tennessee Titans will take the field in just 4 days at Denver against the Broncos. And we all know that the development of Cam Ward is really, truly all that matters about this coming Titans season. Because a lot is riding on the development of Cam Ward, how quickly he can acclimate to the NFL, and if he is the type of quarterback who can turn the Titans franchise around. And right on cue, today on The Athletic, Zach Kiefer, who I love reading Zach Kiefer's work. He used to cover the Indianapolis Colts. Now he writes about the NFL on a national level. He has a fantastic story on The Athletic that I highly recommend with the headline, The Bust Files. I feel like I need the X-Files music as I say that. How NFL teams break young quarterbacks. And there are some heavy hitters quoted in this story. Peyton Manning is quoted in this story. Troy Aikman is quoted in this story. Alex Smith is quoted in this story.
Matt Hasselbeck, I think, is the best.
Yes,
we will get his insights were outstanding.
Andrew Luck,
excellent.
We will get to Matt Hasselbeck because he has some stories about the Tennessee Titans. So we will get to that as well. But Zach Kiefer breaks it down like this, and this is the crux of the article. Quote, in no other American enterprise is the face of an organization routinely a 21 or 22 or 23-year-old fresh out of school, thrust into a new city with new bosses and new colleagues and tasked with flipping their fortunes in a little under 2 years. Andrew Luck is quoted as saying, take all that, then pour some gasoline on it. That's the day-to-day, moment-to-moment intensity of what it actually feels like. So here is what I want us to do. I want us to go through this article because it's broken into subsections about why teams break young quarterbacks. And here's what I want us to do. I want us to look at these and determine how we feel about how the Titans have surrounded Cam Ward. Are they setting him up for success? What do we feel most comfortable about? What are we still uncomfortable about? But let's start generally, Willie. As you read this article, which again, I highly recommend if you subscribe to The Athletic, what was your main takeaway?
There were several things. The one thing that I saw, and it's the reason I mentioned Matt Hasselbeck, I thought it was hugely eye-opening about how scouts and coaches differ on what is going to be successful for a quarterback in the pros. And he can make all the throws, and these pro days where you're firing the ball down the field with no defense, the scouts wow you, and the coaches are more of, I don't know about that. And then underselling the work that goes into it and how you have to surround that quarterback with the right people, that it's not just the quarterback. And so there are a lot of ways to screw it up. I think this article really illustrates all the things that can go wrong that can keep a guy from reaching his potential. Let's just assume that not all these guys had potential to be Joe Montana. We know that. But I think it's when you read this article, there are a lot more quarterbacks in this bunch that could have been good quarterbacks that their teams simply screwed up by being impatient and jerking them around, doing this or that, or not playing to that quarterback's strength. There's so many pitfalls. It's like, you're going across the field and you don't know where the landmines are, but there are so many of them. Like only the real smart organizations know how to avoid those landmarks. That was the big thing for me. And so I do worry, based on what we know about the Titans, if if they can get this done and be patient enough and do the right things.
This article doesn't mention anything about the guy having the ability to actually play the position. It doesn't put the onus on the player. This article is about, to me, how organizations have repeatedly, messed up on quarterbacks or led their quarterbacks astray. The story that stood out to me was Alex Smith.
That's a good one.
Alex Smith, he came from a place out of Utah with Urban Meyer, where he was never under center, ever. And then knowing this and drafting him, you were so stubborn and bullheaded that you put him underneath center. And it was like a fish out of water. You never tried to take your system and tailor it around the guy that you have running the system. You wanted the guy to adapt to your system. Well, we know nowadays you got to adapt to the guy. You just have to. Every coach, especially at that position, you have to do some things that he's comfortable with doing, until he gets to that point where, okay, we're good. But that Alex Smith was a true indication or an example of how organizations draft a guy, really don't have a plan for him. If they do, you're going to work with him, my plan. And oh, by the way, we're going to fire our offensive coordinator. We're going to fire another one. We're going to make you learn this offense. And then like Alex Smith, we were learning one thing, at the beginning of the season, then toward the half of the season, you changed the whole offense. You put me back underneath center. How is that conducive of growth? It's not. And year after year, or every 3 to 4 years, these same things keep happening more times than not, where they're taking these quarterbacks. The prime example is Caleb Williams. He's had 3 or 4 offensive coordinators, and he's been on the league 2 years.
Speaking of Caleb Williams, Peyton Manning, who is quoted extensively in this story, mentions Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. The article says, quote, take the last 2 drafts, Manning says. Chicago's Caleb Williams and Carolina's Bryce Young, the number 1 picks in 2024 and 2023, respectively, entered the season on their second head coach, third if you count interims, and third play caller. So far, all they know in the NFL is turnover. Peyton Manning, quote, I just wish a team would admit, okay, we need a quarterback this year, but we're not 100% sure our coach is the right guy, so we're not going to bring him into this. Of course, they always draft the quarterbacks. Those teams, meaning Carolina and Chicago, were not ready. That's just how I feel. Of course, the question a lot of you are going to have is, were the Titans ready? Were the Titans ready to draft Cam Ward and put him in the starting role?
I didn't think they were at the time, and that's why I would have traded the pick. That could have bought them some time. I kept using the term, use this as an exploratory year. Build assets. Take your time in building the roster around what you eventually will fill in the quarterback spot. They didn't do that. There's nothing we can do about that now. But if they clearly think Cam Ward is special, I think Cam Ward has the willingness, which they talk about a lot in here, to put in the work and the time and understand what is effective in the position. I think he's got that. I do like that they aren't putting in a brand new offense as he comes in. They've had the offense in place for a year as he comes in. I hope that will help him. The key to me will be when they struggle, because it's not if they're going to struggle, it's when they struggle. Hopefully they'll have some success mixed in there too. But when they struggle, they talk about this in here a lot, is having the patience and the fortitude to stick to their guns and ride through the storms together.
But that's why it all brings me back in the Jeffery Simmons thing. You start off 4-3. You're not looking to change anything. You're looking to stay on path. If it's working, you want to stay on path. It's the same thing with the quarterback. And hopefully, I believe that by drafting, they draft him at the right time. I believe because for this reason, they still have a few guys that they can build around. You have your 2 offensive linemen, Skoronski and JC. And then you have Tavondre And you have, to me, Jeffery Simmons. You have essentially 4 guys that 2 on offensive line, 2 on the defensive line that you can. These are your new pillars now. I want to bring my quarterback in here, and oh no, by the way, I'm gonna draft me some young guys that can grow with this quarterback. They didn't want to go another season hoping that they were going to get good quarterback play because, and I said this long ago, a lot of this is about the morale in the locker room. It's hard to not try to build a winning team now, because you understand that if I don't get these guys used to winning, it's going to get harder and harder for them to get out of this sort of funk that they're in. So if I got a chance to draft a quarterback, I am doing everything that I need to possibly do to make sure that the situation, when we put him in it, it's good. It's ready to go. Or we're trending toward it being ready to go, but he's going to be a part of it. So they more or less, I think, had to draft him in a sense because I've been on teams, not a lot of them, but I've been on teams. You go through the whole season and you're losing, and it's just like, damn, like you don't want to get used to this. And frankly, there are a few of those guys on that team that have gotten used to losing, and they want something different. So you can't you can't sell them another season. Well, Cam was there, but we're gonna try to get these. We're gonna go down this road with a Will Levis or a who's the backup now.
Brandon Allen.
With a Brandon Allen.
Well, and they talk very extensively here about how important the backup is.
And we will get to that. But there's a chart in this story by Zach Kiefer. And the NFL is littered with examples of quarterbacks who were either not talented enough to be NFL starters or, quite frankly, done dirty by their organizations. The organizations that drafted those quarterbacks were not prepared to help them. Listen to just some of these names. Zach Wilson, benched 30 starts in. Trey Lance, benched 4 starts in. Mac Jones, benched 41 starts in. Kenny Pickett, benched 24 starts in. Bryce Young, benched 18 starts in. Anthony Richardson, benched 10 starts in. And of course, Will Levis, benched 20 starts in. And all of these quarterbacks at the time were in their early to mid-20s. And I know with Bryce Young, the Carolina Panthers benched him and went back to him. But rarely, once a quarterback is benched, teams do not go back to those quarterbacks.
It does happen. We have documented this. We've done the research ourselves, how seldom it happens. And even when a guy does reclaim the job, and Alex Smith would be one of those guys who was yo-yoed in and out of the starting job, it's hard. It's not easy to succeed there. And Alex Smith has a great quote. Teams preach patience, then they can't help themselves. They have this shiny new toy and they can't wait to unwrap it. And so often it's the wrong decision. And that is a little bit of what makes me worry. We did the study and this article backs it up with the FTN fantasy of there's a better chance that the quarterback succeeds when you don't start him week 1, when you let him ease into it, even if it's 6 or 7 games. There was a line of demarcation, guys who started after week 7 as opposed to opening day. They're going to roll Cam Ward out there in Denver against a really good defense, and nobody is questioning it, right? And Cam Ward does look like he's put in the work. He does look like he's earned the job. He had to beat out Brandon Allen, which isn't saying much, but they didn't have the guts. I don't think they would have had the guts to start Brandon Allen as your opening day starter for a season. That would not have flown very well. And they talk about in this article how a guy like Lamar Jackson had Joe Flacco. They didn't have to start Lamar Jackson day 1. And who was the other example of that?
Alex Smith.
Alex Smith.
It was Patrick Mahomes. With
right. Alex Smith, an established guy who had a really good year in a good system, and it allowed Patrick Mahomes to ease into the job.
Here was an anecdote from Peyton Manning that I enjoyed at the end of this article. It talks about Manning's rookie season. He threw 28 interceptions, which is a rookie record that still stands. The Colts won 3 games. Zach Kiefer writes, quote, he, meaning Peyton Manning, remembers actually wanting the coaches to bench him During his second game, a 28-7 loss to the Patriots, he threw 3 picks in the first 3 quarters, and his confidence was shaken. I didn't want to end the day with 5 or 6, Manning admits now, but they didn't. You're staying in, his head coach Jim Moore told him on the sideline that day. We're not going to win this game, but you need to figure some things out. The Colts had a plan, one handed down by GM Bill Polian before the season. Don't let 18 get hit, period. Polian told the coaching staff. He knew if Manning wasn't getting the crap beaten out of him every week, eventually the light would come on. It meant reworking the offense and often keeping 2 tight ends into block. It meant fewer receivers open down the field and inevitably more interceptions. But slowly the staff began to coach Manning through his early struggles. I had to tell him a million times the punter was his friend. Bruce Arians, Manning's first position coach, remembers. One thing the quarterback remains grateful for. The staff never blinked. Their belief in him remained unshaken, even as his mistakes piled up. Manning knows he wouldn't have been afforded the same patience had he entered the draft a year earlier, in 1997, when the Jets and their hard-driving coach Bill Parcells owned the top pick. Quote, there's no way I throw 28 interceptions in New York because Parcells would have killed me first.
Well, New York is a different animal.
But I just thought it was interesting.
But you can go to Indianapolis and do that.
I thought it was interesting hearing about how even when Manning's confidence was shaken, the coaching staff did what it had to do to put him in a position to succeed.
Well, yeah, the patience was there, and in the quote, don't let 18 get hit. Eventually, they built an offensive line where he didn't get hit, or he found a way, to get down very quickly, so he wouldn't take those big hits. And this is why I believe that drafting Cam Ward was the right move. And, right now, as we sit, I think they set him up in one key area, the offensive line. I think they've upgraded across the board the offensive line, because a lot of, what deters a young guy is not having a clean pocket. If he has to sit there and his feet are antsy and, he doesn't feel comfortable and it feels like the pocket is shrinking, that's when you tend to get, some of those throws that are, unwarranted throws, or throws that you wish you can have back. But with the Titans, they purposely and intentionally went out there and they tried to put together an offensive line that they believe when they choose to step back and pass the ball, he will be art. But most importantly, we can run the football too. That's going to be Cam's best friend, is them running the football. Why? Because if I'm running the football effectively, I slow the game down, I make it in the phone booth, and I don't expose my quarterback to situations 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, where you have to pass the ball. No, we're going to run the football. We're going to run the football effectively. So, I don't know what version of a 2 tight end sort of, thing that Indy was running. Will they run more 2 tight ends with the Titans here? I'm not sure they will do that, but they will find a way to make sure that Cam Ward doesn't take those unnecessary hits, or those pocket is not shrinking as much as it did last year.
615-737-1025. Zach Kiefer in The Athletic writes a story, an extensive story, about how NFL teams break young quarterbacks. Have the Titans set up Cam Ward for success? You let us know. 615-737-1025. Also be listening after the upcoming segment, because I do have some tickets to give away. Let me find them. They are, where are they? There they are. I will be giving away a pair of tickets to see Nelly at the Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, September 16th, at the end of the next segment. So be listening for your cue to call at 615-737-1025, and you can win those tickets. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Ving in 1025 The Game.
just think as a whole, there's not enough emphasis put on the organization's role in the development of the position. Meaning, I do believe this, Rich. I believe that organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. And that's not, there's no specific example in my mind that I could give you of a team or a quarterback, but just overall 30,000 foot view. I think it's important to understand that every single one of these guys is on a journey, a very difficult journey, that they need the support, they need the teammates around them, they need the systems in place to ultimately try to maximize who they are and what their potential is, because you're still drafting players, Rich, off of potential. And then everything that happens from that moment to when that potential becomes a reality is really on the organization if you've got the right guy that you're bringing in. And then in regards to, I do believe there's some times where things just don't work out, and then getting a chance to kind of, wipe the slate clean and get a restart while still using your previous experiences to kind of shape, how you're going to work, why you're going to work, why things are important to you, will only make guys better in the end. And I think we've seen some examples of that in our league as well over the last few years.
That was Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell last year on the Rich Eisen show, discussing the development of young quarterbacks. The quote he used was that teams fail. Let me get the exact quote. I believe organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. Kevin O'Connell was quoted in this. It was quoted in this story by Zach Kiefer on how how NFL teams break young quarterbacks. I want to find this quote because it adds to what we just heard from the Rich Eisen show. And of course, as I say that, now I can't find it. I will find it. Here it is. In what world, quote, in what world do you go from wearing a life vest and learning how to swim to being thrown in the deep end in the middle of a 200-meter freestyle against Michael Phelps?
Only in sports.
We decide in this league very quickly whether a guy can or can't play quarterback. Like it's a simple yes or no. This is the guy or this isn't the guy. Let's either have a parade in the streets or let's move on and try and find another one. And this story from Zach Kiefer tries to answer the question that O'Connell discussed on that clip with Rich Eisen. If O'Connell is right, and organizations fail young quarterbacks more so than vice versa, why do so many teams keep screwing this up? That's the question the article attempts to answer. And my question for all of you, and we're going to continue discussing this, 615-737-1025, how confident are we that the Titans have put the infrastructure in place to make sure that Cam Ward does not become one of these cautionary tales?
I like to be optimistic. I like to give organizations benefit of the doubt, but we talk about fatalism a lot. We get texts every day of, well, whatever the Titans decided, it's not going to work because nothing goes well for the Titans. That we get that guy every day. But I am a little concerned only because I still really go back to that article, the study that was done about the draft and how few teams have followed that. Remember the book Moneyball and how that changed baseball? Football hasn't had its Moneyball when it comes to developing the quarterback. Right now, they keep making the same mistakes over and over and over. I'm hoping the Titans could do it. And there are some things that I think when I read this, D-Mace, I think the Titans have done a good job of. You mentioned a big one, that they have tried to give him a chance with the offensive line. They have given him a quarterback guru, a guy who's worked with a lot of good quarterbacks. On paper, that should be a good support system. They've drafted him not because he just wowed them at pro day, although he does have some pretty good talent. What I hope his best asset is, and what they have been selling, is his makeup and his work ethic. He's a coachable kid that will absorb the information. I think those things give it a chance. I still worry about some of the other things, and one of them is talked about a lot by Troy Aikman and Matt Hasselbeck, and that is how often sometimes owners are swayed by what people are saying in newspaper articles, on television, on sports talk shows, on social media. most of which is not coming from analysts. They're coming from just people that are venting, which is what shows like this are all about. But you shouldn't be swayed by that. Who has been swayed by that? The Adams family, starting with Bud and then handing it off to Amy Adams Strunk. That's what worries me probably more than anything.
Yeah, whether this team, because you're looking at what other people are saying, and these are in their minds their experiences or what they've seen from afar. And it seems like lately, I'd say within the last 20 years, because it's become an arms race and teams are not as patient as they were in 1993 or 1983, where, they can keep a guy on their roster and let him develop 3, 4, 5 years. They can't do that now. And it all started with free agency. They can't do that anymore. So it's become, as the years have passed, it's become, we need to get to that finish line before everybody else does. And by hell or high water, we're going to get there. And if we're going to roll our dice with this quarterback, and if it doesn't work in 2 years, we're going to roll our dice with the next quarterback, because they're not, to them, they're not, it doesn't mean, the money doesn't mean as much to them anymore. They feel if they can't get it right now, because in their minds, we've seen enough get it right now, guys. We've seen enough of them to tell me that I should know after a year or two, this is the guy. I can't wait 3 years. I can't wait 4. Damn sure can't wait 4 years. I'm giving you a year and a half to 2 years to figure out whether he is the guy or not. And if you can't do it by then, 9 times out of 10, you got a bad record. So after that second year, you're drafting in the top 5, and teams are choosing to draft another quarterback. And they're saying, the hell with this one, let him be somebody else's problem. And it will be somebody else's problem. Why? Because every GM in this league think, oh, you couldn't get him straight? I can get him straight.
I want to reference the article Willie referenced. We talked about this a few weeks ago. Ben Standig, who used to write for The Athletic covering the Washington Commanders, wrote a story last September about Jaden Daniels and the annual conversation. Is it best to start a rookie quarterback immediately or have him sit and bide his time and develop before starting? And here are the numbers that Willie was alluding to. Standig, with the help of True Media, pulled up a list of every first-round pick quarterback between 2000 and I guess 2022, because Standig says that this list does not include the 3 quarterbacks selected in the first round in 2023, meaning no Bryce Young, no CJ Stroud, no Anthony Richardson. It also does not include the 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round in 2024. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, and Bo Nix. Because
that's a huge class that we're going to follow, but it's too early to tell.
Too early to tell. So week 1 starters, first round pick quarterbacks over a 20-plus year sample. Week 1 starters, of the 22, 8 received a second consecutive contract from their original team. 8 of 22. Burrow, Flacco, Lawrence, Luck, Kyler Murray, Newton, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford. 8 of 22. Started week 1, just like Cam Ward is going to start week 1. Debut before week 7. Sorry, Derek. Debut before week 7. Of the 43 rookies in this category, 13 of 43 received a second contract from their original team. The quarterbacks I just listed, plus Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Ben Roethlisberger, and Alex Smith. Week 7 debut or later, 13 in the category. 6 received a second contract. Goff, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Eli Manning, Tua, and Michael Vick.
A better batting average.
Starting debut after drafted season. Of the 10 rookies, 6 received a second consecutive contract. Dante Culpepper, Jordan Love, Carson Palmer, Chad Pennington, Phillip Rivers, and Aaron Rodgers. And every name on that last list, with the exception of Jordan Love, is not a modern quarterback. The days of a first-round pick quarterback being drafted and then not touching the field all season, those days are over. But sorry, Derek.
No.
But to Willie's point, there is a better batting average if you're solely looking at second contracts with the team that drafted these quarterbacks. There is a better batting average if you wait 6-7 weeks than if you start them immediately.
There are so many examples based on what this article says, D-Mace, that the impatience, they start day one solely because they're too embarrassed to admit to their fans he's not ready yet. In a lot of cases, unless it's completely obvious, they can't wait to unwrap the new toy, throw him out there, and it's just not the best way to go. But they repeatedly make this mistake.
Yeah, they do, and I'm not going to count, the Aaron Rodgers and that old subset of individuals, because again, that was yesteryear's football. Right. I know it wasn't.
And it depends on who the guy they had is. They had a guy named Favre.
Exactly. So things were even 2 years ago is different than it is now. So you're talking about back in early 2000s or mid 2000s, somewhere around there, when those guys were drafted, and it's even much more different than when they got drafted to what it is now. But all of it, it's never going to stop. They can write 100 books just like this and set them on every franchise's owner's desk and ask them to read it and know everything about it. And they will, but it won't change a damn thing. It just won't. Why? Because this is an arms race. And I need to if you got your quarterback and I got to wait a year or two, my fan base isn't going to wait that long because I got to get them up to speed. And then by then, you're already 3 years ahead of me, unless something just, unless you get a Jaden Daniels or a Joe Burrow like that, and it just jump starts and you're ready to go. But more than likely, it's not those type of guys. It's the Lamar Jacksons that are going to take, 3-4 years to develop. Lamar, it took him 3 to 4 years to develop. He was in one system and he graduated out of that system into a system that they're in now, which is a much better system for the quarterback. It took them 3 years to do that. You think teams are waiting 3 whole years? You better have a damn good football team to be able to wait 3 whole years for your quarterback to develop.
615-737-1025. We will get to your reaction next. I see your phones. I see your texts. We'll get to them next. 615-737-1025. But I did promise a giveaway, so I want to see who has 615-737-1025 on speed dial. If you want a pair of tickets to see Nelly at the Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, September 16th, be the first caller. 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Nelly at Ascend on Tuesday, September 16th. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, it's Derek Mason. I want to tell you about a local company I really trust. All Four Season Garage Doors, owned by Dan Watkins. This is a locally run, family-owned business that have been serving Middle Tennessee for years. They've got a huge selection of garage doors. If you're ready for an upgrade, and their installation is top-notch, big enough to serve, small enough to care. And if you all need repairs, whether it's a section replacement or springs or your door opener, they've got you covered. They can even quiet down that noisy garage door or garage door openers. I told y'all about my garage door opener. It was noisy. Got to take care of. But here's something a lot of people don't think about. Carport conversions. I see a lot of carports out there, especially in the wintertime. Car's still full of snow. You get in your car and it's cold. You got to sit there for 15 to 20 minutes. But here, they can turn that carport into a garage. They're turning it into a full garage is one of the best ways to add value to your home. Since the structure is already there, you're ready for just paying for the framing, the door, and the opener. And the returns on investment can be up to 5 times what you spend. So check them out at all4seasongarages.com. That's all four, the number 4, seasongarages.com. When trust matters, call All 4 Seasons Garage Doors.
D. Mace, Vin, Gannon, Donick, 1025, the game. Congratulations to who won the tickets to Nelly, David?
All right, you got me on who was
I put
it?
you on the spot.
Yes, you put him
Eric. Shout out Eric.
Eric, congratulations, my friend.
All right, my man Eric.
You will be seeing Nelly at Ascend Amphitheater in a couple of weeks. You will have more opportunities to win tickets. I don't know if they're going to be Nelly tickets, but we always have something to give away, including during Silly Underdog Picks in the final hour coming up at 5:20. But we are talking an article written by Zach Kiefer at The Athletic with the headline, The Bust Files, how NFL teams break young quarterbacks. Again, I need the X Files. Whenever I use, yes, I can't remember the exact tune of the X Files. I wasn't a big X Files watcher. I think I was a little too young. Nevertheless,
I never got into it either, and I was not too young.
it was on the air for a long time. Wasn't it?
It was. People would buzz about it all the time. It was like,
I loved X-Files.
Did you?
Yes, I watched.
I should have known, D-Miss. You conspiracy theorist.
I watched all of the seasons, even the movies.
I don't know if T-Mac is a fan of the X-Files, but T-Mac is on our phone line driven by Wilson County Hunted.com. T-Mac, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Titans are going to be all right with Cam Ward as far as, him being a rookie and him starting the first game of the season because, I think out of a lot of quarterbacks that I've seen, especially rookies, he just has a different work ethic than I've seen. Matter of fact, I don't think I've seen a rookie quarterback have the work ethic, as far as studying and just really saying everything you want him to say, doing everything that you want him to do. I mean, there's really nothing that he's not doing. And like I said, I don't think I've seen this from a rookie quarterback on any team before. So I think they'll be all right. And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, T-Mac. there has been a lot of praise for Cam Ward's intangibles, the work ethic, as T-Mac just said, how early he wakes up and has meetings with the other rookies. We've talked about all of those stories over the past several months. And I said this last week. From afar, I get a vibe from Cam Ward that he can be a real leader for this team and motivate his teammates. That is not the end-all be-all. As Gentry Estes wrote for the Tennessean last week, vibes don't equal wins. That's basically what Gentry said. Vibes don't equal wins. I get that. But, of course, we want to see that work ethic translate to on-field success. I do want to share one anecdote that is Titans related from this story from Zach Kiefer. We mentioned Matt Hasselbeck is featured in this story. Quote, team culture matters too. Hasselbeck was further along in his career when he signed with the Titans in 2011 to take over for Vince Young, a former number 3 overall pick who flamed out after 5 seasons. Quote, I'll never forget what the media relations director told me the first day I was there, Hasselbeck says. He's like, hey, thanks for showing up on time today. I was like, when else would I get here? I'm the starting quarterback. But it sort of shows you what they had experienced before. Early on, Hasselbeck remembers wanting to throw after practice and being startled at how unnecessarily difficult the task was. Quote, I had to go to the equipment room, which was locked, and bang on the cage for 10 minutes. They only have 3 guys working, and they're working their tails off. And I ask, is it okay if I borrow a football to go throw? And they're like, yeah, hold on. It'll be a few minutes. Make sure you bring it back. 2 years later, Hasselbeck landed in Indianapolis as Luck's backup. His first week there, Luck summoned his receivers for some post-practice throwing. Quote, within minutes, the entire building knew. A bag of footballs sat waiting for them on the field. Equipment manager stood in position. The video team was ready to record. Trainers had water bottles filled. The wake Peyton left, Hasselbeck calls it. There's a standard in every building, whether it's function or dysfunction, and usually you can tell right away.
I mean, that's a true indictment on where the organization was at when Hasselbeck was there. I remember different. It still was sort of this, it was almost still like we're guarding everything. Like, y'all got to come in here and y'all got to ask for everything and y'all got to wait. But I was used to it in college. It was the same way where we just couldn't walk back there and get our stuff. It was, okay, I got to bring it to you. The footballs, I got to bring it to you. So I was used to that when I got here to Nashville, Houston, then Nashville with the Titans. So I didn't see, it being a big thing because we had a good culture within the locker room. So stuff like that, yeah, it did happen. Like, you would want some footballs and they would give it to you, say, hey, make sure you bring them back, because maybe they didn't have a lot of footballs in the back, maybe because the organization wasn't paying for extra footballs. I can see that happening in that day and age. So what Hasselbeck is saying, I didn't experience all of that. But that tells you where that organization was when they thanked the quarterback, the starting quarterback, for showing up early. What does that tell me as a veteran guy? The last guy wasn't showing up early. That's what it tells me. But then Hasselbeck, that's the dysfunction that they were in that space. It's a much different organization now. So I don't think they have to deal with those sort of hurdles that, Matt had to deal with in 2011.
But to Willie's point earlier, people are hearing that anecdote for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And typical Titans, it happened 10, 15 years ago. So let's just assume it's going to happen again, right? It's the fatalism, to borrow Willie's word, about the Tennessee Titans. Because look, the Titans' track record of developing quarterbacks is...
It's bad. Say it's bad.
It's bad.
It's been bad.
Okay, but and this is
outside of Steve, it's been bad.
And the player that's being referenced by Matt Hasselbeck is clearly Vince Young.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Vince Young was drafted not by Floyd Reese, not by Jeff Fisher, by Bud Adams. Bud Adams told Floyd Reese, you are drafting Vince Young. Bud Adams is not a football evaluator. Never was. but he told them, that's who I want you to draft. This is the kind of thing that is happening a lot. The owner's influence, and this is why I think a lot of people feed off of the track record of Bud Adams and Amy Adams Strunk as wild card, right? You don't know when it's coming, but out of nowhere at any point, they could take a quick hairpin turn when you don't see it coming. And I think all the people Chad Brinker, Mike Borgonzi, Brian Callahan, Bill Callahan, everybody that's there, Denard Walker, all of those guys could sit there and be saying, yeah, we got something good going here. But I'm sure in the back of their mind, you're like, are we going to get the time that we need to build this thing right? Even if they believe they're doing the right things here.
A couple of texters. Matthew from Jolton says, let's just be honest here. Between Jeff Fisher, Mike Munchak, Ken Wisenhunt, Mike Mularkey, Mike Vrabel, and Brian Callahan, who do you feel like has the best chance to develop a quarterback? Of all six, I feel best with Callahan when it comes to developing a quarterback based on the quarterbacks that he has worked with. Another texter says, everybody on 102.5 had their mind made up on Levis by midway through last year. What's the argument for why the Titans shouldn't have been more patient with Levis? Surely not because of a few boneheaded plays early in the season. Seems like the conversation you're having now could be had about Will Levis.
No, there's a difference. It may end up being, Cam gets in there after the first year, and then the second year he shows that there's no development. That can just as well happen. And I'm sure I would be saying, hey, listen, you're going to have to make a decision because this guy doesn't look like. There's one thing to be patient with a guy that's showing development. There's another with being a fool with a guy that's not showing development. Callahan wasn't going to be a fool, because Callahan said it himself last year. All we asked you to do was not mess up the game. And what did you do? Mess up the game. And you did it more times than not. So there was I understand what the texter is saying, but there was no development. There was no reason for me to be optimistic about what I was seeing. Because what I was seeing was a guy that was regressing instead of developing. If there was some development in there, then yes, you can hold on to it and say, listen, we need to do some things different because this guy looks like he's getting it, but because we have some other problems, man, if we fix them, we'll be okay. But Will Levis, for whatever reason, he didn't show that he was developing at a rate that they could continue making him their starting quarterback for the future. It may as well happen with Cam. I don't know. But this is where the rubber meets the road with the Titans. If they're going to show patience with the quarterback, they got to show patience with the coaching staff as well. Allow Brian Callahan to handle his coaching staff the way he sees fit. If he feels he needs to fire somebody, then let him do it. But allow them to, even if Cam's doing bad, allow them to continue to develop that quarterback and be patient with that quarterback, because I think I believe it's going to be different from what Will Levis's issues were. Now, if Cam has some issues, okay, but I don't think they will be the same issues that Will Levis had last year.
We will revisit this topic in the next hour. 615-737-1025. If you want to react, we will get to that later in the next hour. But coming up next, Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us. We'll get him into this conversation. I also want Hutton's thoughts on the week that was in college football. We'll talk NFL and college football with Jonathan Hutton. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5 The Game.
Derek Mason here, and if you injured yourself in a motorcycle accident, go to lawtigers.com for your free case evaluation. Even if your accident was months ago, you have nothing to lose by calling Law Tigers. Insurance companies want to pay out as little as possible, or frankly, nothing at all. That's why Law Tigers make sure you get the compensation you deserve and doesn't get paid until your case has been settled. Listen, they understand how much your bike gear is worth to you. So they will help you get it all repaired or better yet replaced. Law Tigers is the resource the motorcycle community turns to when in need. So whether it's to support you at an event or if they see you broken down on the side of the road, with Law Tigers, you'll never ride alone. So call 1-800-LAW-TIGERS or visit lawtigers.com. That's Law Tigers, which is powered by Freeman and Fuson. And you can find them in Nashville, located at 2126 21st Ave South. That's Law Tigers, Tennessee's motorcycle lawyers.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 102.5 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Before we welcome in Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, the Titans have unveiled their official injury report.
Woohoo!
3 players on the Titans injury report. Dan Moore Jr., ankle injury, did not practice.
What's today, Wednesday?
Wednesday. L'Jarius Sneed, knee injury, limited in practice. Kevin Winston Jr., hamstring, limited in practice. End of list.
Man, how did he hurt his ankle? What were you doing? Did y'all practice Monday? I mean, I guess it's last week. I mean, but you hurt your ankle? Today, Wednesday. Did you practice Monday because of the holiday?
I assume they did.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out when he hurt his ankle.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Or was it
what they said? Well, you remember he did roll
I
something in that game against the Vikings.
So it might
right? So maybe that's still lingering a little.
Yeah, they just
he wasn't out. He was limited. So
yeah, okay. So
I guess you could say, I mean, he's playing.
Yeah, he's playing. But I was just wondering, like, when did he hurt his ankle? Like, they hadn't really practiced.
It must have been in that play.
Yeah, it had
Vikings,
to be.
Right. And they weren't that worried about it at the time, but maybe that's it. I hope that's it.
And I'm wondering.
Then we know what it is.
And I'm wondering if Sneed will be on the injury list every week because of the knee. Will they just no, seriously, like will they just make
the 11th Titan question?
Yeah.
Will L'Jarius Sneed be on the injury list every week?
I think so.
That's a pretty good bet.
Over under 17 weeks.
Oh,
we
man.
bring in Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. And Hutton, we were just talking about this great article on The Athletic by Zach Kiefer, how NFL teams break young quarterbacks and how basically these coaches, these GMs, these organizations, they can't help themselves and they fall victim to the same traps every year. So my question for you, 4 days out from Cam Ward's NFL debut, how confident are you that the Titans have put him in the best position to succeed?
You know, I'm optimistic with Mike Borgonzi, Adam. I am. I like the overall plan that he's at least laid out and what he's trying to accomplish in the short amount of time he's been here. I will say, I think a lot of the situations that the article would refer to, and again, I'm glazing over a broad scope here. I think it's a lot of that would be general managers and head coaches that are not paired up at the same time. You know, GM gets hired, wants his guy. He's drafted the quarterback, and the other guys, the coach is playing the quarterback that needs to win in order to keep his job, meaning the head coach. I suspect that's similar to this situation here. But it really comes down to the quarterback. The quarterback ends up saving the franchise or not. You spend a ton of time with these guys during the draft process, and you either get it right or you get it wrong. And it's like a 50-50 shot, especially if you draft in top 5. I tend to think that Cam Ward has the makeup of what is a franchise quarterback. Now he needs to go prove it. The problem is the Titans haven't been able to prove it with their recent history in the draft. You mentioned Dan Moore Jr. With an ankle injury. I mean, who's next man up? The undrafted rookie as a swing tackle. Like again, like you put Latham.
Let's not find out. Yeah,
Latham would move to left tackle again, and it's 2024 all over again. So Will Levis is somewhere smiling at that. They did practice on Monday, by the way, Mace.
Well, that's a good thing.
And then had Tuesday off. Hey, I have they set him up? It's a steep hill right now for him. He's going to have plenty of welcome to the NFL moments, not moment. And it's not a good football team that I see. But I think they have tried to improve the offensive line. They don't have a run game that is deep right now because Spears is not someone that is going to stay healthy. And as a two-headed system, I think they're okay in the backfield. Can Pollard carry the load? He didn't have to do that right out of the gate last year. Now he's doing it from week 1. I'm fascinated by that because if they can't run the football, this is an offense that Vegas has nailed pretty spot on. They're over under for offensive points of 16.5 on Sunday in Denver. It's pathetic.
I want to ask you about that matchup. In this article on The Athletic, Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell is quoted extensively. And here is a great quote from him. Quote, "In what world do you go from wearing a life vest and learning how to swim to being thrown in the deep end in the middle of a 200-meter freestyle against Michael Phelps?" And I feel like the matchup in Denver is similar to that feeling of being thrown in the deep end in the middle of a 200-meter freestyle against Michael Phelps, because Denver is a tough place to play. I have to mention the altitude. I always like to make it sound spookier than it actually is. And the Broncos have arguably the best defense in the NFL. Do you like that this is where Cam Ward's first NFL game is going to be? Because this truly feels like a sink or swim moment right off the jump.
No, this is awful for them. And you mentioned Michael Phelps. Every quarterback that's drafted where Cam Ward is drafted is expected to be Michael Phelps, and Michael Phelps would have been in the pool from day one. So, that's just how it is. This is the NFL where you're trying to make the most of your. It doesn't always go where if you sit you're okay. Jake Locker had Matt Hasselbeck, but that didn't help. So I tend to think it's more about the organization making the right decision in the system that they're running, and whether or not the quarterback can make players around him better. And I think that this team buys into what Cam Ward is all about. However, I say I think because they were doing that before they even met the dude. Okonkwo was calling him the leader and the captain when he had just been drafted. So we'll see. For his sake, I hope he stays healthy and develops into something that they can mold from good to great.
Well, they hope that, by upgrading the offensive line the way they did, that could be the ingredient at least to keeping him healthy. I don't think this game I come from a different point of view. I don't think this game is about Cam Ward. I think this game is solely about the two coordinators. One, Denard Wilson on defense. How is he going to attack this second year quarterback in that Sean Payton's offense? And then more importantly, it's Brian Callahan. Because Cam's going to be a rookie. He's going to do some things that we're going to see on Sunday, and we're going to say, wow. And then he's going to do some things that we're going to see him like, man, he's a rookie. How many of those, man, is he a rookie plays are we going to see? And that is dependent on how Brian Callahan calls the game this upcoming Sunday.
I mean, this comes down to Mace. You know what? This is indicative of whether or not they have fixed their issue with the shoot yourself in the foot pre-snap issues, the special teams issues. Have they solved those problems? Can they not fumble the football or muff a punt? Can they stop the pre-snap motion and offside penalties that put them in 1st and 20 instead of a down and distance where they can hand the ball off and actually control the pace of the game and use their game plan? They got way out of whack last year doing that. And I tend to think that's where we'll see a huge difference with the offensive line specifically. More veterans up front, guys that should be able to keep their composure on the road in Denver, which is not an easy place to play, especially over the first 2 weeks of a season in Denver. Their record's phenomenal over recent years there. But I'll just go back to, can they not beat themselves? Because Brian Callahan's team did that last year. And they have a lot of youth across the board. But by and large, we've touched on the show, by and large, it was up front, a lot of issues up front with alignment and flinching and just a lot of guys that didn't really need to be in the game were rotating at right tackle. Can they solve that? And every team's going through the war of attrition. But once they get to their depth, there's not much that Ward can do about that. But you're right. I want to see I want to see Callahan step up and scheme this, right? But it doesn't happen in week one. I think that's also part of the overall development that we need to see around his rookie quarterback. He's got to slowly let the leash out some.
Now, are you surprised that on the depth chart right now, they have Io Manor as one of the starting receivers? Because not only now are you putting your, first year quarterback out there against this defense. You're putting your first year wide receiver out there on defense. It wasn't a surprise more so than it was, okay, that was interesting. That's what it was for me, because I don't think.
You know what I thought?
Go ahead.
Hey, going back to your game plan question, I think this is part of that. I think they want to run the football. This dude has talked about his passion for blocking. I'm not kidding. I've listened to him talk about like his favorite play in college football was a block. They want that physical tone in this game. They've got to have it. And I prefer him over Van Jefferson for that personally. It's certainly not Calvin Ridley, right? Like you give him motion. He's got Iowater's got to be the dude on the short yardage, red zone target that you can just toss up and let him go and get it and win the battle, win the 50-50 ball, or set the edge when you got Pollard who's going to flare out and catch a pass or whatever it might be. There's got to be someone that's going to open up a hole on the outside. That would be his role, as well as, how many targets are we talking for him? 5? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I don't think you can get into the double digits with him unless you're down and trying to throw the football. Yeah, you're right.
So I mean, I want to see him catch the football, but I think there's more to it than just that. They're listing 3. They play a lot of 11 personnel anyway. This is why they drafted him. I don't know if he's ready, quite frankly, for Denver's defense, but I mean, you could say that for practically a lot of receivers that are drafted where they were in their rookie season. So, I mean, look, they had to improve their wide receiving core. I thought he had a good preseason. But I liked what I saw from Van Jefferson in the final preseason game.
We're talking to Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, talking ball, as Floyd Reese used to say all the time. We're going to a little college, a little pro. Let's go college, Hut. True or false, or agree or disagree? Saturday's game, big picture for Arch Manning, will be the best thing that could have happened to him.
Oh, that's a great question. I think big picture, it's not the best thing that could have happened for him. Because I still think he would be. I don't think it really shakes him, Willie. Just how his whole moxie, and I mean he was going to SEC Media Days asking questions about why he was even the favorite for the Heisman. He was asking media that. Comes to find out, like he actually meant it. He wasn't just trying to avoid the question. Look, I think it was also part of the schedule. Ohio State was legit. I mean, I loved what I saw from them. So, they get Grand Valley State or whoever they have this week. I mean, it's awful for all the talk about the great week 1, the greatest week 1 in college football history. Take a look at week 2 and I'll show you the worst, the worst week 2 in college football history. Getting back on track. He's a much better quarterback than what we saw. He was out of rhythm. He was definitely flustered, and Sarkisian's a good coach. They'll have him. It's hard to see a Manning that fails. I think Arch will be just fine. Personally, I don't know that this rattles him all that much. Quite frankly,
I think the struggles. I mean, like you said, I'm with you. The degree of difficulty of that defense, he may not see that level again.
Right.
And so if he learns
only in
from
practice,
right?
In practice, yeah.
Who knows? They could get it. They may have another crack at each other in the playoffs.
I hope so.
I'd like to see him. Give me a grade of what you saw from Tennessee. What was good? What was bad?
I thought it was a B+, man. I was impressed by the quarterback in the system. I think it's the duo, the combination of the system and the quarterback. It's also a combination of Syracuse. I don't know where Syracuse is going to end up at the end of the year, but I saw more from the offense. This is not going to be a defense that is going to live up to the hype of last year's defense by any means, but I see a team that can run the Heupel pace offensively. I thought a quarterback that was settled into the game after the first quarter, and I mean we saw him deliver some great passes. I don't know where you guys come down on this. In one game I'm thinking he fits Heupel's offense better than what Nico did.
Oh, of course. I think he does.
I don't know how that.
Can you imagine if they come out ahead on this whole thing?
I mean, I think that from the standpoint
That
of
theory is being thrown out there by some
Yeah.
people. More than one person believes that could be the case.
I think they will from this standpoint. Like you said, Hut, this offense allows you to put up the yardage if you're capable of. You don't have to be the greatest
Right.
quarterback, but you have to be able to process it really quickly
Yeah.
and get up to the line of scrimmage and run the offense at the pace Hyper wants to run it. I don't think Aguilar is great. I think, him passing below 60%, I think against a really good team, that may come back to bite him. But this offense will always, I believe, be in a position to put points on the board, especially against teams they are better than.
I want to see more consistency from wide receiver.
Yeah.
But they've got 3 running backs that can run the football.
Mm-hmm.
We have heard a lot about the tight end play that we didn't see in week 1. That will continue to develop. And he's been there for such a short amount of time, and he's running the offense. I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, I mean, by the time we get to the Georgia game, both teams should be unbeaten. Just based on the schedule, how it lays out, I tend to think Aguilar is going to be playing his best ball right now. And it's crazy to think in this day and age where, I mean, Nico's getting paid what, $2.5 million? Like Tennessee was willing to pay him $2.5 million. It was the fact that he wanted more that got him booted. And knowing that you pick up this guy, it's a crazy. It's part of the reason why Hypo gets criticized for not developing quarterbacks for the NFL. That's not his job. But man, does he finds a way to work in quarterbacks for his offense, especially the guys that come out of nowhere like Hendon Hooker and now Aguilar.
Hutton, before we let you go, I've got to ask you about Monday night. TCU.
Oh my gosh.
Just laying the smackdown on North Carolina. I'm going to continue to bring this up because I loved every second of it, except for Carolina's opening drive. After that, it was just great. What is your biggest takeaway from that whole game?
That Bill Belichick is I think he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with some of the athletes he has on his team. Got some slow guys in the secondary, especially corner.
That number 29 was getting roasted.
Dude, they're going to get roasted. They're going to get roasted. And, he's in for a long year, and so are we, because I think they have like 8 more games on ESPN.
Hey, if they're all like the one the other night, I will watch all of them. So I will help boost the ratings. On
Adam is really having trouble.
How long will Hulu stick with them? How long? Is Jordan coming back around anytime soon? I doubt it. After seeing all that,
you think Lawrence Taylor is making another trip to Chapel Hill after this?
Absolutely not.
Nah.
But like they get the ball, they go down and score, and I'm thinking like, oh, here we go, and then like nothing. Like it's just, we should have known this was going to happen. The way that Alabama opened, the way that Arch Manning opened, and just how things in the storyline progressed of the offseason. That of course Bill Belichick was going to fall flat on his face, and of course Jordan Hudson was on the sideline.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on D Mace, Vingan, and Donick as he does every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Hutton, great stuff as always, my friend. We'll chat next week.
All right, you got underdog picks next, right?
We do. Do you have one for us?
It's not MTSU. I can tell you that.
Hey,
we're True Blue for life. We're True Blue for life.
Shout out Austin P.
Oh my gosh. No, I can't do that. I'm still a Blue Raider, but man, that was a rough. That was a rough week 1.
A rough go
for the Big Blue. Hey guys, have a great rest of the week.
All right, Hutton. 615-737-1025. It is indeed time for week 2 of Silly Underdog Picks. We're here. Hal Gill will be here. Chris Sanders will show up at some point arguing about something inane. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen. It is 5:25 on a Wednesday, which means it's time for Silly Underdog Picks, presented by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. I now turn it over to the commissioner, Willie Donick.
Willie D. Ooh, Willie. Oh, Willie.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your commissioner speaking. Welcome to another week of the Silly Underdog Picks 2025, brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. The 31st year of competition is underway, and I'm proud to announce that not one of our contestants scored a single point in week one. Sorry,
I ain't getting no points. I'm glad y'all didn't either.
It is 0, 0, 0, 0. That is the standings board.
Yes.
And 0 for the people.
0 for the people as well. And the people will make another pick. So, with us once again, our contestants. We've got via the Northeast, somewhere way up north. And I'm trying to get this visual here. Let's just get the visual. Paint the picture. Hal Gill joining us, the rookie, for his second week of picking. Hal, where are you right now?
I am on Moosehead Lake in the middle of Maine. And I am actually, I live about 10 miles up north on the lake, and I had to get back to where I could talk to people. I was off the grid. I came back onto the grid just for you guys.
That's what I'm talking about, Hal. You know who didn't do that last week? Chris. That's what I'm talking about, Hal. You about it.
The work ethic
exactly.
I felt bad for him, and I didn't want to be that guy. As a rookie, I didn't want to be that guy.
So we appreciate your efforts, Skillsy. So Hal Gill, the rookie, if you missed last week, this is Hal's first foray into Silly Underdog Picks. He has got a very good team of surrounding people, some of which the studio actually witnessed some of the research going into Hal's pick. He's putting full effort into this. He's fully backed by the Predators broadcasting team for better or worse. We're going to find out. Now joining us from down the road at Montgomery Bell Academy, fresh off the practice field and on time, the defending champion, Chris Sanders.
I hate to.
Chris
isn't not.
Chris Sanders, ladies and gentlemen.
Chris isn't here.
Chris.
What?
Chris.
He called you, though.
Wait a minute.
He did, but he said he's going to call back in 4 minutes. That's what he told me.
Oh,
it's been longer than 4 minutes,
the anticipation.
by the way.
The anticipation. It has been a rough start.
Yes.
For the defending champion. If you missed it last week in the opening week, Chris was not quite sure what day the competition was. He was surprised. We were frantically calling him. He was fresh off the practice field. He had not prepared for the pick. And it didn't go well.
It didn't go well.
Which he was absolutely hammered for when he actually did join us. So we'll get to that. Guys, how are you guys feeling after
I'm still feeling good.
Okay.
Still feeling good. I'm not worried.
Okay. Well, let's just review so you guys can be reminded of what happened last week.
Why we got to go down that road?
Okay. Well, that's just part of the routine, you know. All right. Here are the Silly Underdog picks from week number 1. Derek Mason had the first pick of the season after finishing in the cellar last year.
Willie,
why you got to bring
that up, man?
You were the champion 2 years ago. But last year finished in the cellar. Sorry about that. I said the first pick. He selected Syracuse, a 14-point dog, heading down to Atlanta to take on the Volunteers, and it didn't go well. D-Mace was ticked. 45-26. He was very upset with the Syracuse squad and what they brought to the table. What happened?
Damn. Syracuse.
What happened?
Nothing happened. That's what happened. They didn't win. That's what happened. They don't have a quarterback. They can't protect their quarterback. The quarterback don't know where he's throwing the football. Man, oh man, it wasn't like UT was some, just supremely superior team. They were not.
You thought just Syracuse brought nothing.
Yeah, Syracuse didn't bring nothing to the picnic. Not a damn thing.
Well, if you thought they didn't bring anything to the table, wait till we get to Adam's pick in a minute. The second pick belonged to Hal Gill. He selected, in his first ever pick in the competition, Cincinnati, the Bearcats, a 6.5-point dog at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. as they took on Nebraska. And it was kind of a late night game, especially if you're out in the Eastern time zone, which I was at the time. Cincinnati was battling right in it, had a chance to win, but fell 20-17 to Nebraska. So, Hal, let's get the visual here. Did you stay up to watch the entire game?
Yeah, damn straight I did. Yeah,
that's the kind of effort we're looking for.
That's what I'm talking about.
That was my team, and I thought I was going to make a real splash. Like this, everyone is going to find respect for the rookie and to say, "Hey, this guy's legit." And it just fell apart on me, and I'm a little upset about it because I do have an advisory committee, as you know, that I trust, and I kind of let them down.
It was tough, and you bypassed a successful pick that nobody picked, and you were given the message loud and clear from the committee that they were not happy with your choice.
Yes, and I feel a little bit of shame. I feel like I'm not a team player, and I need to be better.
Okay, well, it's the competitions are
like Belichick said. We just weren't good enough. We need to be better.
That's an understatement of the year.
Exactly.
For sure. So Hal's squad did cover, but if you're new to the competition, no points for a cover in silly underdog picks. The underdog must win outright to score any points. Adam Vingan had the third pick. He also went with a late night game. He went with the Bruins of UCLA in the spirit of he loves chaos. He was hoping that Nico and the crew would make a big splash in the first game, and everybody in Knoxville would be all up in arms. UCLA, a 5.5-point home dog in the Rose Bowl, a chance to get off on a good foot against a tough team from Utah. Final score, Utes 43, Bruins 10. Adam?
No comment.
You had the scenario all laid out.
I did.
What happened?
Nico happened.
Did you watch the game?
No.
Why?
I did. He wasn't good. He wasn't good.
I was tired.
So you woke up and looked at the score? Is that what happened?
I did. I woke up and I said, I wonder how UCLA did.
Well,
Then I went back to sleep.
The end. At least you didn't invest yourself with a late night with the Bruins. That was a nightmare. All right. Finally, we get to Chris Sanders,
who is still not on the show.
Oh, boy. Clock's ticking, Chris. Hey,
boy.
Big Red, might want to wrap it up. Chris Sanders, flustered with his first pick after a storybook season last year. He came out of the gate. He took Vanderbilt over Virginia Tech. He had numerous double-digit wins. He ran away with it. And this year, he was so confused and flustered, he took Texas, the only game he could think of on the slate, a 1.5-point dog against Ohio State, his beloved alma mater. Chris Sanders, a two-sport athlete for the Buckeyes. And, of course, the Buckeyes came through and beat Arch Manning and the Longhorns 14-7. And so, Chris, a forgettable first week in the competition.
Chris,
not on the phone for comment. We're going to get Chris on here in just a minute. So now we move on to week 2.
Hard to find. He's one of the best.
Bueller.
Now we'll see if Chris brings up when he comes on. He tried to protest and tried to switch his pick.
We have Chris.
Okay.
We have Chris.
Before we move on to week 2.
Before, I just want to say, Chris wanted me to give you guys a message. He wanted me to say you guys suck.
Yeah.
Okay. Rude.
Okay.
That's what.
So with that lead in, let's bring in Mr. Buckeye himself and the forever Titan.
He's not even Mr. Buckeye. You can't give him that name.
It's better than Mr. Spartan.
Whenever you pick against your team, you're not considered a Mr. Buckeye anymore. Did you pick against your team? Did you pick against your team?
Okay, let me ask you a question. What sounds tougher, Mr. Buckeye or Mr. Spartan?
Did you pick against your team?
No.
Yes.
No, D-Max. Actually, I got the point because it switched.
I'm talking about versus Michigan.
We going to smash them, man. We going to smash them.
Isn't this the same guy that picked Michigan to win last year?
He got points. He got double-digit
points.
No, it
ain't about that, Willie.
Hey, I'm trying to win the game. I don't know, but I'm trying to win. Hey, let me ask y'all a question. Who won last year?
We don't know. We forgot.
They turned the page.
I just need to know.
No, we forgot, man. Win.
So, Chris, are you ready for week 2?
I'm ready for week 2.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Very good. All right, so let's move on. Week number 2 is ready. Here is the order. Still looking for our first points tallied on the season. Hal will have the first pick, followed by Adam Vingan, then Chris Sanders, and then D-Mace in the 4-hole. So, with that, the first pick of week 2, belongs to Skillsy up in the state of Maine.
What?
All right, Hal.
Hal, are you wearing a purple hat? Are you wearing
I
a
gotta
purple
be
hat?
honest. I'm on the lake. That's not exactly my vibe, but I'll get back into it. But for right now, I have to say the one I missed out on last week was South Florida, and I will give Kara Hammer a ton of credit. She called it right away, and she knew it, and I balked at it. I kind of laughed at it, and now I got to ride with Hammer, and so I'm going to go with South Florida over Florida. And you know what? My son has a pair of gloves. He's 8th grade at Ensworth, and he has a pair of South Florida gloves. So it's like, you know, there's signs out there, and you got to read the signs. And so I'm going with it.
Okay.
A big swing from Hal Gill.
This is a Chris Sanders
yeah.
pick.
No, mine ain't that bad.
We're gonna find out, Chris.
What? Wow.
The South Florida Bulls are a 17.5-point dog in the swamp against the Florida Gators.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this is a
Go
big
or go
swing.
home.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. We're gonna see how that rolls. That brings us to the second pick of the week, and it belongs to Adam Vingan.
Oh.
I'll make it quick. I will take the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Oh my God.
To upset 12th ranked Arizona State at home this weekend. I have Arizona State as a 6.5-point favorite at Mississippi State. So I will take the Bulldogs over the Sun Devils.
All right.
Mississippi State is indeed a 6.5-point home dog against 12th ranked Arizona State. Now, last week, Mississippi State beat Southern Miss, and the Southern Miss coach said Mississippi State spent $15 million on their offensive line and defensive line, and we can't compete with that. It's basically what he said. So if you needed any more evidence that it's become a professional game at the college level, that was it. So Mississippi State trying to turn their fortunes around after really struggling last year. They get a chance to knock off a top 25 team. Arizona State coming to town to play at Davis Wade Stadium at Scott Field Saturday at 6:30. All right, that brings us to Mr. Big Red, Mr. Buckeye, and the Forever Titan, the defending champion,
oh my Lord,
Chris Sanders.
There we go.
Gosh. Seriously.
We've been looking for you because you don't answer the phone
Gosh,
when the segment is on.
Oh my goodness. We're feeling lonely.
He don't know who he want to pick. That's why he stalled.
I know. No, here we go. This is gonna put me on the map right here. Stanford over BYU. Come on, Stanford. Cardinals. Oh yeah.
Cardinal.
Oh yeah.
Is it Cardinal?
Yeah. They don't have an S on the end for you know.
So it's not Cardinals.
No, they're the color. I guess.
Okay. Thanks.
And their mascot is a tree and not a bird. So that's so. And of course, Chris, you should know this because they are now in the Atlantic Coast Conference, as Adam loves to. So they're going to be playing this way a lot more. All right. So I saw a picture of Andrew Luck in a Stanford game. Is he helping Stanford out?
He's their GM.
Yeah.
He has become their GM.
Yeah.
He's their GM.
Okay.
I have the line on this game. BYU minus 20.5.
Let's go.
Now
Let's go.
If you thought Hal was taking a swing, this is the Chris Sanders special.
No,
that is a Chris Sanders kind of pick right there. That is a Chris Sanders kind of pick.
When I win, all y'all have y'all phones on, please. Please,
Mine's going to be off.
The Cardinal is
the first person I'm calling is D Mace. First person.
20.5 point underdog at BYU in Provo. And that is a Saturday 9:15 kickoff on ESPN. So that brings us to ESPN. That brings us to D-Mace with the final pick of week number 2.
I love it. All right. I just had my pick. I'm going with UConn over Syracuse. It's a 6.5 point. I ain't picking Syracuse. I'm going against Syracuse.
This is a vengeful pick.
Exactly.
It's a spite, Derek Mason.
It's a spite.
Spiteful. Yes.
I did my scouting. I saw Syracuse play last week. Okay, and they're not a good team, so I'm going against them this week. Good part about it is I ain't see UConn. But I guess the bad part about it is I ain't see UConn play. But they are 1-0, so I'm going with UConn.
You realize this is a football game, right?
Yes.
This is not in the Carrier Dome with Ronnie Cycli and Pro Washington playing.
Ray Allen isn't in this game.
Ray Allen is not playing in this game. Although that's common. They might have a guy named Ray Allen.
Yeah, you may be right.
Yeah, but it's not that Ray Allen. So UConn, the Huskies are a 6.5 point dog at Syracuse in the building that D-Mace once starred in a track meet.
Yes, I did. Back in the day.
It used to be
At
called
Mumford
the
High
Carrier
School.
Dome for decades. It's now called, for whatever reason, the JMA Wireless Dome. No wires in that place.
I know. I still consider it the Carrier Dome.
Okay, I feel like someday you need to return to the Carrier Dome against Chris Sanders in a 40-yard dash. What do you think?
Man, I'll pull a toe muscle.
Hey, I wouldn't even. I told.
I'll pull a toe muscle. I ain't gonna even try that, man. I ain't even trying that.
I wouldn't even finish it. I mean, when they say on your mark, when they say on your mark, the hammer's pulled already, so I wouldn't even mention it.
False start.
Oh man.
All right, let's review the picks for week number 2. They are officially in the books, and you realize, Chris, now that you've been in this competition for 5 years, you cannot. The line could change, and it doesn't matter. Your line is locked in.
Okay,
you didn't seem to understand that last week. And
yes,
so
sir. Yes,
there was
sir.
a behind-the-scenes protest that was shot down quickly.
I appreciate it.
So here's what we got. Week 2, silly underdog picks, brought to you by Volunteer Hose and Gasket. Hal Gill, from the beaches of Maine, barely in range to communicate with a phone call. He selects the South Florida Bulls, miles away in Tampa, as they will travel across the strait to take on the University of Florida. And the Bulls are a 17.5 point dog in the swamp. Adam Vingan trying to bounce back from a rough first week with UCLA. He'll go to the SEC and select Mississippi State. The Bulldogs, a 6.5 point home dog as they host 12th ranked Arizona State. Then Chris Sanders, much more poised and composed this week, selects Stanford out of the what conference?
The Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yes. Stanford is located in what state?
California.
That's not the Atlantic Coast. Stanford, the Cardinal, a 20.5 point dog as they travel over to Utah to take on the BYU Cougars. And finally, Derek Mason, who finished in first place 2 years ago, last place last year. He selects UConn, a 6.5 point home dog as they take on Syracuse, a spite pick after Syracuse did him dirty last week.
Ooh,
Larry David-esque from Derek Mason.
No question
a
about
spite pick from Derek Mason.
Gentlemen, those are the picks for week number 2. The people will pick next.
They will.
Gentlemen, good luck.
Hey, listen, all of y'all, you know what? I love each one of y'all, and I pray for the best with you and your families. But I hope y'all get y'all kicked in this game. You know, silly underdogs. I want to beat every last one of y'all this weekend.
Especially Chris.
Especially Chris.
Have your phone on. That's all I'm saying.
May the best dumb win.
That was the alternate name for the segment. It's your turn to pick. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025. You will represent the people. And if you pick correctly, you will win a pair of tickets to see Dwight Yoakam at Ascend Amphitheater next week, Tuesday, September 9th. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025 with your silly underdog pick, and you can win a pair of tickets to see Dwight Yoakam at Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, September 9th. We'll wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's tell you about Loan Pronto. They want to lock you into a better rate. Rates are as low as they've been in 3 years right now. So if you got stuck with a high-rate mortgage and you're watching that hard-earned money go down the drain every month, at Loan Pronto, they are delivering these rates right now. The rate reduction home loan program is ready to go. It's a streamlined, low-cost way to slash your house payments by hundreds of dollars a month. Lock in that fixed rate as low as 4.99% APR. And that rate is not going to last. So call now. Loan Pronto is ready for you. A free, no-obligation quote is just at your fingertips. Here's the phone number, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Lower payments, more money in your pocket, and a fresh start. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Quickly, let's get our people's pick for silly underdog picks. Again, the prize, a pair of tickets to see Dwight Yoakam at Ascend Amphitheater on Tuesday, September 9th. Our friend Mark in Nashville is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Mark, your selection, sir.
Number one caller. I'm going with Michigan over Oklahoma. Saturday.
Okay. Good luck, Mark.
D-Mace, your thoughts?
I don't like that pick. Oh, Michigan.
Who are you rooting for in that game?
Oklahoma. Oh, let's go. OU, Oklahoma. Okay. Oklahoma University.
Go Sooners.
Let's go Sooners.
I could see D Mace on the Sooner schooner.
Oh yeah,
when you get on, just getting the carriage going with all the horses.
Oklahoma.
If they want me to give them a pep talk before the game, I give it to them.
Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite.
I hope they beat them by 55.
Okay, so he takes Michigan. The Wolverines ranked 15th at number 18, Oklahoma.
I want to say College Game Day will be in Norman this weekend for that matchup.
Okay, all right, 5.5 for Michigan.
Before we get out of here, I want to revisit the conversation we were having in the 4 o'clock hour about how NFL teams break young quarterbacks. We received one text that we did not get to at the time. I want to get to it now.
Mm-hmm.
This unnamed texter says, you guys are talking like you honestly believe Brian Callahan has the answers. He's not a good coach, and we all know it. We're just being patient for reasons, but the inevitable is he's going to be fired.
Okay, the texter, and thank you. We appreciate you listening to the show and then wanting to be involved in it through your text. But how do you know they're going to be a bad team? You're saying we just know they're going to be a good team. We never said that they were going to be.
But
a
he
good
also
team.
says we know that Callahan is a bad coach.
You're saying he's a bad coach. If you and we've went over this several times, and this is what has been Willie's theme for the longest. This roster is just not good. So you got to understand where he started off as a coach. You don't want to make no excuses for the guy. Ultimately, you got to get the job done. That's what this league is about. But when you start below as a head coach, I mean, that's a hard thing to fight through. That's hard to try to build your team when, one, you don't have a quarterback. You know, a lot of your veteran guys, when you got here, they were gone. You know, guys were getting injured. So your offensive line wasn't good. So you walked into a situation, and I get it. He didn't have to take the job if he didn't want to. But the organization didn't set him up in past years to have any success, even if they chose to, like they did, go away from Mike Vrabel. When Mike Vrabel left, and I'm not saying it's all Vrabel's fault, I'm not saying that, but when he left, and then when Rand left, the cabinet was bare. There was not much food in the cabinet. So you're asking him to make right off the bat, made a five-course meal with just potatoes in there. You can't do that. Now, I understand y'all want to win. I want to win too. And eventually, he's going to have to show that he's the coach for this job. But when you have just potatoes or rice in the cabinet with nothing else, it's hard to make a damn 5-course meal. It's hard to make a 3-course meal.
You don't even have the beans to go with the rice.
Exactly.
Well, let's illustrate that. What's the texter's name again, Adam?
There is no name.
No name. Unnamed texter. So let's give him a name. What's our category today? Sitcom characters.
Yeah.
You use
Urkel.
Florida Evans.
Let's say
Urkel. Okay, let's go Urkel.
I was gonna go
Or
with
Stefan. Stefan, the cool side.
I was gonna go with Punky Brewster.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, we can go with Punky.
So let's just lay this out. We all know he's a bad coach. I will challenge you. I'm giving you 4 drafts, 4 in 4 years. The best players that come out of that draft for the Tennessee Titans in 4 years, 2020, 2021, 22, and 23. That's 4 drafts. Your best players: Peter Skoronski, Roger McCreary, Chigakonkwo. Those are your 3 best players from 4 drafts. And you're telling me anybody could coach that team better.
Mm-mm.
Is he the perfect coach, Brian Callahan? No. But there is not a coach on this planet that could have won with that small of a talent pool from 4 drafts.
Vrabel couldn't win at the end with the draft picks they accumulated because those older guys started to leave. He couldn't win with that roster.
Peter Skoronski, Roger McCreary, Chigakonkwo. Those are your 3 best players from 4 years of drafting. Tell me how you win in this league.
We'll give you until 3 o'clock tomorrow to answer that question.
But
when we're back on the air.
But he knows.
Yeah.
He says we all know
keep texting.
that that Brian Callahan cannot coach based on that.
I don't know if he can coach or not.
Something tells me we'll continue this discussion tomorrow at 3 o'clock as we inch ever closer to week 1. We have an actual football game tomorrow. Cowboys and Eagles. 1 day closer to the Titans season opener on Sunday at Denver. We will continue breaking it all down with you at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Chasing Checkers is next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. We love you. Peace.